I guess I think there are four ways to convince people that there is a problem. You've already mentioned the first. For the most part, societies change most rapidly when forced to do so by some catastrophic situation. It's interesting that information, I've been an educator all of my life, and it's taken me a long while to realize that new information per se very rarely changes behavior. There's always a few people who respond and are able to move forward. But if I talk to an audience of 500 people and they tend to believe what I'm saying, doesn't mean they all go out and change their lifestyles. We tend to be propelled more by catastrophe than by new information. The second thing is other forms of coercion. The gun to the head is a fairly prominent way in our planet, unfortunately, of getting people to change their ways. But more mild ways are just the legal system. So we really ought to be recognizing that our whole culture, society, is really a set of laws to force us to do things that we otherwise would not do because they're good for the culture as a whole. So I think there have to be new rules and regulations around consumer behavior to make this a more sustainable system. And one of the ways to do that, and this is a third mechanism, is through the price mechanism. If you think of energy, for example, the only time that energy use per capita has declined significantly in the developed world is when prices have risen very steeply and unexpectedly. So in the late 1970s and early 1980s, during the Iranian War and the Arab oil embargo. And then, of course, about 2 years ago when energy prices spiked around the world and, in effect, stimulated the crash of the finance market. I think there's a very tight relationship between high energy prices and the sense of insecurity that then led to the financial crash of the last couple of years. So rising prices will change behavior very substantially. We saw the collapse of Detroit. We've seen now a great reduction in U.S. energy consumption. People do respond. This is another form of coercion, of course. It's not voluntary. But if you can't afford to buy a lot of stuff because the prices are now reflecting true scarcity, then consumption goes down. The third mechanism is what we're doing now, I guess. It's called social learning, but it takes 40 years for a new idea to sort of penetrate to the point where it has mass appeal. Maybe a little less, 20 years in some cases, but if you think of the great struggles for such simple things as the right for women to vote or female liberation or civil rights, these are long-term struggles that, and it's a very slow way to change people. So unfortunately, we seem to be stuck between having to recognize that new information isn't the way to get people to move and having to be very, very uncomfortable about waiting for change to be so dramatic that they're forced to move. But we seem to be caught in that way. Mere persuasion doesn't seem to do it at this point, not for the mass social movement that we need here.